Traveling is expensive, and as someone who's traveled to 4 countries for free, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. When I was in college, I didn't have a lot of money to travel, but I also knew that once I left school, I would have even less opportunity to do longer periods of travel without summer breaks. I've always had the desire to experience other ways of life. I think we all get too used to our version of normal and get too caught up in our own problems. When I took a gap semester in college, I seriously looked into ways of how I could travel for free or very cheap. I often saw people talking about their experiences of being an au pair, which is like a babysitter or nanny, but that's usually more for long-term arrangements of a few months, while I was looking for something that was more on the basis of a few weeks. Then I came across this community that had exactly what I was looking for, a platform called Workaway. On Workaway, people will offer housing and food in exchange for a few hours of work each day. The work really varies depending on the arrangement. You also get days off to travel and explore the area. Since the host is providing you food and housing, the only thing you need to pay is basically just your airfare to the country and your cab fare to the destination. This offers a really great way to spend time with the locals and engage with the local way of life. Common opportunities that I've seen on the platform include farming. Once a traveler that I met said that she had spent a few weeks on a farm in Italy, but it was like a winery, so they were like making wine. There's also a lot of opportunities to teach English, but as long as the program is not for profit, since Workaway is about like fostering cultural exchange and not about getting foreigners to work with no money. I've also seen around Asia opportunities to work in temples, which is pretty unique. A lot of people who do Workaway like to work in hostels since you have a nice clean place to sleep and it's a relatively easy job just manning the front desk and helping change out the sheets. There's also a lot of opportunities to do creative projects, as I think the people who usually choose to host workaways are sort of like creative folks themselves. During one of my stays, one of the other travelers actually completely redid the interior decoration on this property. So you really get to meet all sorts of interesting people. For the workaways that I've been on, the first one that I did was in Thailand. I was teaching conversational English over Skype for maybe like 4 hours a day, and for the rest of the day, I was free to do whatever I wanted. I also traveled to the Netherlands one summer and stayed on a personal dream farm and just helped with like farm tasks, cooking, cleaning, stuff like that. I didn't actually have experience farming, it was just something I was curious about, so it's not like a very like formal work arrangement where you have to like necessarily have experience in a lot of cases. I went to Vietnam where I was babysitting for this family that had 3 young kids while teaching one of their kids Chinese, and I stayed in Taiwan for a few weeks in this really rural area doing Airbnb stuff, laundry, making the bed, helping the guests, stuff like that. Each experience was incredibly unique to the host family that I stayed with, and each time I got to meet other travelers, which was really fun and helped me create a sense of community in the area I was living in. If you're thinking about doing Workaway, make sure to look at the reviews online, but also it's a really good idea to set up a call with the host and see if you'd actually be a good fit, since you will be living in close proximity with these folks and you want to make sure that both of you guys can have the best experience. For me, 2 to 3 weeks was a very good amount of time to spend. I feel like I got to settle into a way of life and really talk to everyone and get to know them, participating in the cultural exchange, but also it gave me enough time to have enough days off where I could explore the surrounding area. So of course, traveling for free comes with some downsides or possible cons, and I'm gonna discuss them here. I think the biggest con that's like built into a Workaway is that if you want to do touristy stuff, this is probably not the way that you would want to travel. The Workaways that I've been to have all been in remote places, but I think that's because of my interest in like farming and spending time with families. But in my 4 experiences, I was very far from a major city, so that wasn't something I could easily access on the day-to-day and like spend a lot of time doing touristy activities. On my days off, I did go into the city, but I think in general, if you like to travel to do touristy stuff, just like spending your time working, staying in one place probably won't be a good match. For me, there's no reason to like go to touristy places and take photos of it because I could just search it up on the internet and I feel like when I do touristy stuff, I get bored after a day or two anyway. It's really a different way of traveling, being exposed to people's daily lives in their homes and really like being with them and talking to them every day. The second thing, which is also I think the most important thing to set your expectations for a workaway, is that you have to remember that your housing is like truly free accommodation. The accommodations for workaway are not for the weak. It's not going to be perfect. You might be uncomfortable. You might spend some time sleeping next to a cockroach. I remember me and one of my fellow travelers were laughing about that, and he was saying that in the night he kept on feeling something on him and he would just brush it off and not think about it because we both knew it was definitely a cockroach. I've had to sleep with giant huntsman spiders looking down at me. I've also had to shower with a toad watching me. In my experience, these were not as a result of the host family like not being accommodating or welcoming towards me. It was just sort of like the local standard of living and also living in remote areas in very close contact with nature. It was just sort of the cards that were on the table. That said, if this really turns you off, you could definitely live in the city, and I feel like that would probably lower the risk of running into things like this by a lot. And lastly, this kind of goes without saying, but traveling with workaway means that you do really have to be able to roll with the punches. You can't really be offended easily or get upset over like small, picky things because there's just so much that won't be in your control, and a lot of it will just be unexpected. In each of my travels, there have been many, many unexpected things. Some of them were really great and some of them were not so great. I think that as long as you can take things as they come, it's not really a big deal. These experiences have really expanded my perspective for different views of life, and I've gotten to meet all kinds of people and make friends with folks that I would never have a chance to talk to or get to know if it hadn't been for these circumstances that brought us together. I've also never personally felt unsafe in any of my travels, and I think I'm very fortunate to have met many great friends along the way. If you're thinking about going on a trip like this, let me know what you're thinking, and I hope this was helpful.